California is the latest state to announce a special lottery to get residents vaccinated. The cash prize, more than $116 million. So we're seeing more and more states use these types of incentives to get shots into people's arms, something the White House is praising. But for people with gambling problems, vaccination lotteries can be a trigger, and some worry about a relapse. Keith Whyte is the executive director of the National Council on Problem Gambling, and he joins me now from Washington. So, Keith, let's just first start off with what, this pandemic has been like for people who have a gambling addiction or people in general who have an addiction. It's been tough. I know people they weren't able to gather if they had support groups or 12-step programs, they couldn't meet face-to-face. Sure, you can Zoom that kind of thing, but, sometimes face-to-face interaction makes all the difference. And with gamblers, I would think it's particularly tough because, if you've got a drug addiction, you've got to go out to get the stuff. When it comes to gambling, you can gamble right at your computer or on your phone. Can you talk about why this period of time has been such a challenging time for people who are trying to fight a gambling addiction?
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne Marie. It's a great question. One of the things we know that during the pandemic, the stress, the social isolation, the anxiety, the financial losses, all four of those factors are triggers or associated with higher rates of gambling problems. Then, as you say, it's never been easier to gamble from your phone, from your home. And we believe that, too, is driving up the risk for gambling problems during the pandemic and now as we're coming out of the pandemic and casinos reopen.
So, states are turning to things like these lotteries to motivate people. Sounds like a great idea, sort of. But so when I hear, oh, what a great way to motivate people, what do you hear? What do people who are dealing with gambling addictions hear?
Well, everything that makes the lottery attractive for the 98% of people without gambling problems makes it addictive for the 2% or 6 million Americans who are unable to resist the urge to gamble, who, even if they're not paying to enter the lottery, can still feel that same excitement, that tension, that need, and it can risk relapse for them, and it can risk them going back to gambling and developing all sorts of negative consequences.
Because it's not just about, okay, so this one lottery, that can just open the door to kind of another spiral. And it's funny because what you described there, you gave us sort of a list of emotions. You didn't talk anything about the money or the potential, the upside of it. And if, gambling becomes a problem when you're losing more than you're winning. And it has nothing, so, typically when you start to lose, if you don't have an addiction, when you start to lose, you walk away from the table, right? No one wants to lose. But with addicts, it's different because it's not just about the money. Can you talk about the psychological impact of placing a bet?
You're exactly right. For recreational gamblers, it is about the money, or it is about dreaming about that big win. For people with gambling problems, it's about staying in action. It is that psychological need to keep betting over and over again. And then the financial part comes in because the longer you play, the more likely you are to lose. And so when you start losing, people with gambling problems, they don't walk away, they chase their losses. And so they start spending more and more money to achieve that same high. But of course, they develop tolerance. So the more they gamble, the more they lose, the more they lose, the more they need to gamble. And in that vicious cycle can continue up to and including, thoughts of suicide. So it's really important to balance. There are obviously massive public health benefits to getting people vaccinated. But states have to remember that if they're encouraging people to gamble, they're responsible for the negative consequences too, and they have to do a better job of protecting those vulnerable citizens.
So then what would you like to see state governments do?
I think the most important thing is to make sure that people aren't just automatically opted in to the lottery. I think individuals should have the opportunity to opt in if they want, and that if they don't choose to opt in, they should not be pressured to gamble. Obviously, the second important point is that anybody who does opt into a vaccine lottery receives responsible gambling materials. And third, of course, is to make sure that states that offer a vaccine lottery have public funding for prevention and treatment programs. And unfortunately, there's several states like Kentucky that are running a vaccine lottery now or offering lottery tickets as prizes that don't provide any public funding to prevent and treat gambling addiction. So that's the state, on one hand, telling you to play the lottery, even if it's for a good reason, but on the other hand, not providing any support for the 2% of people who will become addicted.
Completely. So let's talk about what resources are available, because aside from this vaccine conversation, there may be people out there who feel like they're slipping, they're struggling with gambling. What can they do?
Well, the important point is that there's hope and help available. We run a 24-hour nationwide confidential toll-free helpline where you or someone you know or a family member can call 800-522-4700. Again, it's toll-free and confidential. It works nationwide, and we will refer you to resources in your area. Problem gambling is preventable and treatable, but often you've got to take that first, that agonizing, that tough step, but then we can help you the rest of the way.
Definitely, you are not alone. Keith Whyte, thank you so much.
Thank you, and